Hi and welcome to Gridbusters. So today what I want to do is go over a few questions that everybody has been asking all about the solar system. Also, how is the solar system performing over winter months? It's now kind of like mid-February, absolutely freezing here. But you know what? We're still generating solar power. Yesterday, well, what's the date today? So the date today is the 17th of Feb. On the 16th of February, we generated something like 52 kilowatt hours of solar. Now, it was sunny yesterday, not so good today. But what I want to do today is kind of go over all of the stats over the winter period so that you can kind of see how much power, we're using, how much power we're generating, and also how much money we're saving on our electricity bill over the winter months, but also since we installed the system back in April. So what we've actually done is we've installed 32 solar panels, giving us roughly around 13,500 watts, so 13.5 kilowatts of solar. So that's what we have on our system. And realistically, on a really, really sunny day in the middle of the summer, we can usually generate anything between 10 and 11. I have had up to 12 kilowatt hours, but usually, you know, when it's sunny, we normally get like 10 kilowatts of solar into the system really easily. 10, 11 is kind of like the sweet spot of what we normally generate. So what I want to do now is we're going to go over into the plant room and we're going to talk about a few things which I would have done differently if I was installing the system today. So the first positive actually is the warmth of the plant room. So this is a section of the house which isn't heated, and we used to just keep our lawnmower in this section of this room. It used to be where the old oil-fired boiler for the house used to be, and it used to just have an old like a brick floor. It was kind of a bit like a shed, and you could usually see your breath in here in the winter. It was so cold in here. So obviously we insulated this room and we've dry lined it and damp proofed it and everything else, and we've split the room into two. So this section of the room is for the plant room, also all our computer server equipment, and then in the other half of the room we put our chest freezer, and we keep all of our things like our blenders and all those sort of kitchen gadgets that we don't use very often, we keep in there. So it's worked really well. But one of the things I was worried about was I was thinking, okay, are we going to have some sort of like heating in here because we have batteries? And I know that batteries don't work very well when they get really, really cold. In fact, they say you shouldn't operate these batteries if it gets like below freezing. And during the winter, we've also got the water main here as well. And during the winter, we did once have a situation where that froze. One of the pipes in here actually froze. It was so cold in here when it used to just be a room that we kept the lawnmower in. So I was worried about how cold it would get during the winter. Well, right now outside it's like, I think it's 3 or 4 degrees Celsius outside. It's absolutely freezing out there. And what is it today? So today I've just got the thermometer. So the thermometer here, it's 20 degrees Celsius in here. So you can see the kind of difference in heat that we have. And actually I'm a bit warm wearing my ski jacket in here. So yeah, it does stay nice and warm in here. One of the things I did have to do during the summer, because it got too hot in here during the summer, I had to put an air conditioning unit in. So I literally just got this on Amazon. It's not even a system that's plumbed in. I just bought a portable unit. I think it was 450 euros or something, and I stick the tube out the window during the summer, and that keeps the room cool enough. And that's fine, because in the summer we actually have more power than we actually can use in the summer. So when the room gets too hot in the summer, it's actually electricity we wouldn't be using anyway, so it doesn't cost us anything to run that air conditioner. So that's a positive. One of the things, design flaws that we have actually done is when I designed this room, I put the hot water tank in the other section of the room where the freezer is. I was thinking maybe I should keep the water out of the plant room. Well, I wish I had actually put the hot water cylinder in this room rather than the other half of the room, because this section of the room, this room here, is very warm. Where the freezer is, that's not heated, so it does get cold in that section. So if we'd had the hot water cylinder here in this room, I could have got a heat pump hot water cylinder, and that is maybe something I will do in the future. They're quite expensive, But what the heat pump water cylinders do is they've just got a unit on top of the actual water cylinder themselves. They don't have a unit outside. It's all built into one unit, and it has a fan built into the hot water cylinder, and it removes the heat from the air and puts it into the hot water. So this room gets really hot in the winter. So maybe we could use some of that heat and put that into the hot water. I don't know, maybe it might make the plant room then too cold in the winter. I'm not sure. Let me know your thoughts on that, whether I should do that. So that's the first kind of like design flaw I did. Right, so the next design flaw is kind of like comes down to the layout of the system. So at the moment we've got two charge controllers here. We've got the Quattro inverter. Then we've got our power in unit here. We've got some breakers here for the batteries. We've got our little mini computer here which controls the system. And then we've got the touch screen here. And then we've got our batteries down here. Now this is all working fine. However, we are thinking of doubling the size of the solar system, in which case we would need another two charge controllers. And where do we put them? I can't put them here because when we get more batteries, I'm going to be putting more power in units here. Plus, you don't want to have them directly above each other. They need airflow. So we do have a space here, so I could put them here, but it's kind of annoying really. Everything's not grouped together. So the design flaw is I think if I was doing this again, I would be putting this Victron Quattro, I would be moving it over here. And I left a space here because I thought, well, maybe we might get another Quattro, maybe we might need more power, and we could put a second Quattro here, which we could do. But in hindsight, I don't think we do need more power, but we do need more solar. So that is the kind of design flaw. However, I think what we're actually going to do when we do double the system is I'm going to remove these charge controllers and replace them with the next model up. So at the moment, these charge controllers can take 2 strings each. There is like a more powerful charge controller that Victron do, which each charge controller can have 4 strings each. So I think we will be replacing these charge controllers with some bigger charge controllers, and then I can either sell those charge controllers or use them on another project. Now I do have another project planned in the future, which is going to be a much bigger system, a huge system for a completely different project, not for this house, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, so that's my thought now. So yeah, so that's the kind of little mistake I made. Maybe I should have just had one charge controller which had 4 inputs, and then I would have had space to expand. My thought though was for having two charge controllers rather than one unit where I could have 4, because I've got four strings of solar. So I thought about buying one charge controller with 4 strings, but I thought it would be better to have 2 charge controllers in case one ever broke. So if I had one unit for the whole system and it broke, then we wouldn't have any solar. But because we've got 2 charge controllers, if one of them broke, we'd be down to like 50% capacity, which is kind of like why we did that. But you know, like I said, we can upgrade both of those to the larger units. So that's the first. That's the next thing. And apart from that, everything else seems to work fine. I wouldn't really change anything. Maybe I would make these openings slightly smaller just to make it a little bit neater. But overall, I'm really happy with the way the system is working and how everything works. So the other big part of the system that we have is batteries, and we've actually got 3 16 kilowatt hour batteries, and these have been a massive help to us, particularly during the winter months. Let me explain. And here is something that very few people talk about when it comes to solar installations, and that is off-peak power. Now, we are set up slightly differently to how most people do it, simply because we have a DIY system. So the way most people have it set up is they have, traditionally people don't actually have batteries traditionally, or they have very, very, very small batteries. and they will sell their electricity. When they have too much power, they will sell it back to the grid. Yeah, that's how like a lot of people have their systems set up. Here in France, if you kind of like install your system yourself, you're not allowed to sell it back to the grid. EDF have to, who's the electricity board here, they have to like install the whole system for you, and they charge crazy money, and they kind of really limit the size of the solar system that you're allowed to have, and we didn't want to do that. So we've installed battery packs, and we're going to install a lot more battery packs in the future. But how it works for us is during between, I think it's something like, I think it's 11 o'clock at night and 6 in the morning, our electricity prices are a lot cheaper, like about a third cheaper than they normally are. It might even be slightly more than that. I'll have to check the bill, but it's a lot cheaper, our electricity, during off-peak times. So traditionally what we did was, most people who have electric cars know this, you charge your car at night, it automatically charges during the night, and that's what we've been doing. Our hot water cylinder, for instance, because we don't have gas here, natural gas, everything's electric. We've always, charged or rather heated our hot water cylinder during the night as well. But guess what? With our batteries, during the months of kind of like November and particularly December, when we generate very little solar power, what we're actually doing is we're charging our batteries to 100%, all of our house batteries to 100% during the night, and then we're actually using all of that power during the day. So during November, December and January, 100% of our electricity usage has been off peak. And this has really made a big difference to our electricity bill. And actually, if you look at our power usage throughout the entire year, pretty much all of our electricity usage is off peak, with the occasional time where we forgot to charge the battery because I was doing some testing, and for instance last night, for instance, the battery didn't charge because I miscalculated everything. And what I'm actually doing is, it is a little bit complicated at the moment, and I hope to automate this in the future. I look at the weather forecast, and for instance, yesterday was really sunny all day. So the night before, I actually changed the settings. I've got like I've got several different presets. So I put it on a different preset to only charge the battery to 30%. Because I knew we were going to have a really sunny day. So for instance, like I said, we generated over, I think it was like 55 or 52 or something, 50 plus kilowatt hours of electricity is what we generated from solar yesterday. So I didn't need to charge those batteries to 100%. I only charged them to 30. And I think by 6 o'clock in the evening, our battery was still at 50%. And then that brought us all the way through to off peak again. And I forgot to change the setting last night because today it's not going to be sunny until something like 1 p.m. So we're actually on grid power at the moment this morning. So sometimes I get it wrong. What I'm hoping to do is, if anybody knows of anyone who's done this, let me know in the comments. But I was thinking I could maybe write a software code or have a programmer write some code for me to put into the Victron system that would look at the weather forecast via an API to some sort of weather forecast service online and check how much sun we're going to have the next day. And then the system will look at the weather forecast and go, oh, okay, it's going to be sunny tomorrow. We don't need to charge the house batteries, or it's going to be cloudy all day tomorrow. So we're going to charge the house batteries to 100%. So this is kind of like what we need. If anybody knows of anybody who's done this for the Victron system, even if it's a paid service, if it's paid, that's great, because I want to help support developers. I'm a big believer in that. And if not, then this is maybe something we can do as a community. This is something I really want to get done and release, because I think it would be a very valuable thing. And at the moment, like I said, I'm doing it manually, which is a real pain because, like I said, last night I forgot to change the settings, and now we're on grid power. We're on peak grid power, which is not good. Now, the final great thing about having batteries is are rather power cuts. Now, here in France, we actually do have quite a lot of power cuts. And just before we installed the system, it was about a year ago, actually, this time last year, it was actually in January, we had a 1 week long power cut, which was insane. It was just over a week. And the crazy thing is, the Victron equipment was all being delivered around this time. It was all crated up and boxed up, and we hadn't actually installed it. And I actually very quickly kind of put together one of the batteries and jerry rigged it all, and we were running off. I had one of these batteries with an extension cable hooked up to a very kind of makeshift inverter, just to the inverter, just with some temporary cables going through to the house on an extension lead, and that did kind of tie us over for the week. But what has made the really big difference for us are the kind of like, we have a lot of like 1 minute, 2 minute power cuts here in France every week. In fact, we had one yesterday morning. And the amazing thing is, we don't even know that these things have happened because our power is, it's like seamless. We don't even notice. And it was I only noticed because I went into the computer settings yesterday evening. I was just looking at something. I was changing one of the settings, and I noticed an alarm, and it said, "Oh yeah, you had a power cut at 9. I think it was 9:30 yesterday morning." It was only for about 10 minutes, I think. But that has completely changed. We don't even notice power cuts. And in fact, in January last month, we had a 6-hour power cut, which was actually scheduled, and we did get a letter from the power company. They're actually moving all of the power cables in France. They're moving them underground, all the local power cables. It's crazy. They're digging up all the roads around us. So we had no power for 6 hours, and we'd actually completely forgotten. And the only way we know that there is a power cut in the house is we have the cooker hood in our kitchen, which has a little light on it, is hooked up to one of our protected circuits. So what actually happens when we have a power cut, we actually have two circuits. We have what's called a protected circuit. So we have all of our heating, hot water, all of those sort of things that are really high drain, like car charging, things like that, on a separate circuit. And it's set up so that if there's a power cut, that circuit automatically disconnects, so that if there's a power cut during the night, like for instance, the heating won't just drain all the batteries and then we wake up and there's no electricity. So if there's a power cut, the heating turns off, the car charger turns off, the hot water turns off, and purely by accident, when we rewired the house, the cooker hood, which basically uses no power for whatever reason, I think because it was hooked up to the same power point as the electric oven or something like this. Anyway, that actually turns off as well. So if the cooker hood light ever turns off, it's a little LED light, so it uses virtually no power. If that is off, we know that there is no, we're in the middle of a power cut. And it was like in the afternoon, I came down and I was like, why is the cooker hood not working? I was thinking, oh, the cooker hood must have finally broken. And then I thought, my gosh, it must be a power cut. And sure enough, we were in the middle of a power cut. We're like 4 hours into a power cut. So yeah, having batteries as home backup is pretty amazing actually here in France, because of the amount of power cuts that we get here. And also the off-peak side of things, that has made a really big difference as well. Okay, so what I want to do now is go to my office. We're going to fire up the computer and we're going to look at some actual statistics month by month, and then we're going to see how much power we're using and then how much power each month we are generating. So let's go to the office and go and check that out. Right, so let's get into some stats. What we have here is our French electricity bill. This is actually the reverse side of our bill, and they give a snapshot of the entire year. So what we're going to look is we're going to compare last year to this year, because last year we didn't have the solar system at this time of the year. We installed it in something like April. So if we let's look at here December to January, because that's a very difficult month for us. We actually used roughly around 3 megawatt hours of electricity that month. So it's split into peak and off peak. So HP is off peak and HC is peak. So we use like 2005 kilowatt hours of peak electricity, and we used 1025 kilowatt hours of off-peak electricity, which is roughly around 3.0 megawatt hours, so just over 3 megawatt hours, 3,030 kilowatt hours of electricity that month. Now, if we compare that to the same time this year when we actually have the solar system, so that's December, January. So we can see that it's completely switched around. So our main use now is off peak, and we can see that's 1,882 and of off peak, and then peak we're still using 344 kilowatt hours. So that's a combination of around 2.2 megawatt hours, or 2,226 kilowatt hours. So yeah, it's a big reduction. We're actually, as a whole, we're reducing our power usage or bill by about a third because of all that off peak that we're using. We're kind of completely switching it around, which is pretty incredible. But let's have a look at the Victron data. So what we have here is the you can see here this is blank because we didn't have the system here, but in April is when we actually installed it. So let's have a look at month by month. So you can see here, if we just look at the total use since we installed the system, so we've actually used 17 megawatt hours of electricity since we've installed the system. That's just how much we've actually consumed. 17,296 kilowatt hours, so just over 17 megawatt hours of electricity. Now we're very heavy users of electricity because we don't have oil fired heating, we don't use natural gas, everything is electric here. It's a very big house. We also have electric car. All of our power tools here are electricity. The lawnmower we use is electricity. I run an internet business as well, so we have servers and other things as well. So yeah, we use a lot of electricity. Some days we use up to 100 kilowatt hours of electricity in a day. In fact, I think yesterday we used 100 kilowatt hours of electricity in the house. So yeah, we do use a lot of power. But yeah, 17 megawatt hours is what we consumed since April. And we actually have generated 10 megawatt hours of electricity, or 10,065 kilowatt hours of electricity is what the solar has actually generated during the year. Now, from the grid, we have this. It doesn't actually give us a breakdown of this, but this is combining off-peak and peak power. We've actually pulled roughly around 10 megawatt hours from the grid as well, or 9,915 kilowatt hours is what we've actually pulled from the grid. Now it does actually say to the grid 72 kilowatt hours. I don't know why that's there. We've actually set it up to not feed into the grid and actually continuously pull like 50 watts from the grid to stop us pushing stuff back in. But obviously we are still exporting a little bit into the grid, which we shouldn't actually be doing. If anybody knows how we can stop that, please let me know. But yeah, that shouldn't be happening. So I don't know why that is. Every now and again, you'll see a little trickle that just backfeed it a little bit, then it'll stop. But that's over the whole year. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. Everything is set up to not feed into the grid, but we're still feeding into the grid. I don't know why. That's not good. We shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, but yeah, so so it's pretty good. I mean, this is what we need to look at here is a year I think are the stats over the course of a year, because obviously you're going to have days where it's cloudy, days where we don't generate much. But if you look at it over the course of a year, we're actually, massively reducing our electricity dependence on the grid. And you can see here during the summer, so if we just look at July as a good month as an example, we can see we used 1,299 kilowatt hours of electricity that month, or just 1.29 megawatt hours of electricity, and we actually generated more than that. We generated 1,375 kilowatt hours of solar. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Look at August. We used 1,150 kilowatt hours, and we actually generated 1,340 kilowatt hours. Where the extra solar is going, I don't know. I think some of that goes into the battery and then it's used later on, obviously. So maybe some of it was going a little bit into the grid. I don't know. Then September. So in September, we are still doing pretty well. So we used 1,251 kilowatt hours of power in September, and we generated 1,114 kilowatt hours. So pretty good. So we're almost still level there in September. October, this is when things switch because we put the heating on and so forth in the house. So in October, we used about 1.5 megawatt hours of power, but we only generated 1 megawatt hour of solar. So yeah, we're starting to use the grid now, or rather off-peak grid. Then November, it gets really cold and our electricity consumption really goes up. So in November, we used 1.9 megawatt hours of electricity, 1,903 kilowatt hours, or 1.9 megawatt hours of electricity, but we only generated 460 kilowatt hours of solar. So not a great month for solar. December is usually, I've heard from other people, it's the worst month. And again, it got even colder, and we used 2,385 kilowatt hours, or 2.3 megawatt hours of power, crazy amounts. And we only generated 277 kilowatt hours of electricity. So not great. But in January, it's going back up again. So we're still using a lot of power in January. 2.4 megawatt hours of power is what we used in January. But we generated 582 kilowatt hours. And then in February so far, we're only sort of, the 17th, so we're not all the way through the month yet. We've used 1,499 kilowatt hours of power. And we've generated so far 416 kilowatt hours of electricity. Pretty cool. So that's those are our stats. So those stats are very, very interesting. And I think the interesting thing is, even in the middle of the winter, we're still able to generate, on the worst month of the whole year, we're still generating like 400 kilowatt hours of electricity per month. And I think when we double the size of the system, we might be able to push that up to a megawatt hour, 1 megawatt of power per month, even in the dead of winter. Now, one of the reasons we're able to do this is because the roof which we have the panels on is at such a steep angle. And I think that's really important when you install solar. If you're installing solar yourself, and particularly if you're putting them on a ground mount, or if you're building a roof to accommodate solar, think about the pitch of the roof. A lot of people talk about having like an adjustable ground mount system, so you can adjust the slant of the solar panels, because in the winter you want them to have a very, very steep angle because the sun is really low on the horizon. And then in the summer, you want to have them at a much shallower depth. Well, here's the thing. I think that's a complete waste of time, because unless you don't have enough solar panels, because in the summer, we're always generating enough power. In fact, we're generating too much power. So we don't need to worry about having them at the ideal pitch. When you're installing solar panels, my advice to you would be install them for the optimum position for winter production. So the steepest angle that you're going to need them at in January or December and January. So that's the angle you want them at. Obviously in the summer, they won't be at the optimum angle, but in the summer you're generating so much power anyway, it doesn't really make much difference. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're still able to generate quite a lot of power even from quite a small solar system in the middle of the winter. And when we double that system to 60 plus panels, or maybe a few more, then we should be able to in December maybe bring that up to, or November, December, bring that up to a megawatt hour of power even in the middle of winter, which is pretty incredible. So guys, I hope you found that video useful. I am going to be releasing some new videos very, very soon. I have an absolutely huge system, or rather a huge project, which I'm planning. In fact, it's my biggest project ever. So so it's just going through the planning permission stages
is right now. And I'll keep you updated on that as soon as we get news, which should be in probably a week or so, or a few weeks time. I'll keep you updated, and I will be making another video hopefully in the next couple of weeks, running through that project and with your thoughts on it. It would really help if you would subscribe to the channel, and if you want to see a video which I made during our 1 week long power cut when we temporarily put the system together to see if we could survive, you can see that video right here.